This is the tragic story of Michelle Lee, a case that shocked an entire community and exposed a dark truth hiding in plain sight. What happened that evening in a quiet hospital parking garage would leave investigators searching for answers and a family devastated by loss. The hospital parking structure looked normal that afternoon. Staff members came and went, cars moved in and out, and nothing appeared unusual. It was the kind of place where people assumed they were safe. Michelle Lee, a dedicated nursing student, walked toward her vehicle just like she had done many times before. But on this day, she would never make it home. Michelle was known as a kind and hard-working person. The parking garage was quiet at the time, and there were no witnesses to see what happened next. Hours later, her car would be discovered locked and abandoned. At first, it seemed as if she had simply disappeared without a trace. But the truth was far more disturbing. Someone driven by jealousy and resentment had carefully set a plan into motion. A plan that would end in tragedy. What really happened in that silent parking lot? And who had been waiting there for her? Michelle Lee was born on October 12, 1984, in San Diego, California. She grew up in a large and close-knit family. Her childhood home was always full of life, surrounded by cousins, aunts, uncles, and relatives who gathered frequently. Michelle lived with her parents, her brother Michael, and their cousin Christine. Among the many people in her life, the person she admired most was her mother. Her mother worked as a nurse and was known for her compassion and dedication to helping others. Michelle looked up to her deeply and dreamed of following the same path. When her mother passed away, that dream became even more important to her. Michelle committed herself to honoring her mother's legacy. Her brother Michael later described how Michelle stepped into a leadership role within the family. Despite the grief they were facing, she remained strong and supportive. She helped her younger relatives learn everyday skills like cooking and driving. Whenever someone in the family needed help or advice, Michelle was often the person they turned to. Although she had to wait 5 years before being accepted into a nursing program, she never gave up on her goal. Eventually, she was admitted into an accelerated 1-year nursing program. By May of 2011, she was close to finishing. Only 6 months remained before graduation. Michelle was completing her clinical training at Kaiser Permanente Hospital in Hayward. Working in the maternity ward, she was known among staff and classmates as cheerful, responsible, and incredibly hardworking. Her academic record was nearly perfect, and she was always willing to help with extra duties. On May 27, 2011, Michelle arrived at the hospital for her regular shift for student nurses. Fridays were the final day of their weekly clinical rotation. Everyone was looking forward to the weekend. Michelle had even made plans to travel to Reno to visit friends after work. At 6:55 p.m., she told her instructor that she was going to the third-floor parking garage to get something from her car. Her white Honda SUV was parked quietly in a corner of the structure. Security cameras later captured Michelle walking toward the vehicle. At one point she appeared to hesitate, then briefly turned in another direction. About 17 minutes later, the SUV was seen leaving the parking garage, but Michelle never returned to finish her shift. Around 9 p.m., hospital staff gathered the students to wrap up the day. Michelle was missing. Her coat was still hanging in the break room. She had not signed out, and calls to her phone went unanswered. Concerned, her instructor contacted hospital security and went to check the parking structure where Michelle usually parked. The garage was silent. No sign of Michelle. Then suddenly, something unexpected happened. Michelle's SUV drove back into the hospital parking structure and pulled onto the third floor. Her instructor tried to wave the vehicle down, calling out in hopes that Michelle would stop, but after pausing for only a moment, the car turned around and sped away. The instructor immediately felt something was wrong. The behavior was completely unlike Michelle. She was convinced that whoever was driving the car was not Michelle. Police were called right away. By the following morning, Michelle had been missing for more than 10 hours. Friends, co-workers, and family members began gathering at the police station. Deeply worried, investigators returned to the hospital parking structure to begin their search. That is when they discovered something alarming. Near the spot where Michelle's car had originally been parked, detectives found bloodstains. A few hours later, around 9 a.m., Michelle's SUV was located again. This time it was parked near an apartment complex not far from the hospital. The vehicle was locked. Inside were Michelle's personal belongings, including her laptop and identification. But investigators also found something Unexpected. Another identification badge was inside the car, one that did not belong to Michelle. Police soon learned that this badge had been reported stolen only days earlier. That discovery led investigators to believe this was not a random crime. Someone had planned this, someone who likely knew Michelle's routine and used the stolen ID to move around. And notice. Hospital records revealed another disturbing detail. About 30 minutes after Michelle had gone to the parking garage, someone called the hospital pretending to be Michelle. The caller asked to speak with her instructor. When told they had reached the wrong department, the caller asked that a message be passed along. The message claimed that the father of Michelle's children had suffered a heart attack. The story made little sense. Meanwhile, something even stranger was happening. Michelle's brother Michael received a text message from her phone. It read simply, "I'm okay." Shortly afterward, another message arrived saying, "I'm not missing." Friends also began receiving texts from Michelle's phone, but each message told a different story. One claimed she had a flat tire. Another said she had gone back to Reno. Another explained she needed a break from social media. When Michelle's ex-boyfriend texted her phone asking where she was, the reply he received was chilling. "Who is this?" It became clear that whoever had Michelle's phone was trying to create confusion. As the investigation expanded, police began looking deeper into Michelle's personal life. One name kept appearing again and again: Giselle Esteban. Michelle and Giselle had once been close friends during college. At one point they had even lived together, but their friendship eventually fell apart. Giselle had been in a relationship with a man named Scott Markin, with whom she shared a young daughter. After their relationship ended, tensions began to grow between Giselle and Michelle. Michelle and Scott had gone on a few casual dates in the past but had decided they were better off remaining friends. However, Giselle became convinced that something more was happening between them, even though there was no evidence to support her fears. Jealousy began to consume her. When police interviewed Giselle, she openly admitted that she disliked Michelle. Investigators then turned their attention to Scott. He had known Michelle for years and had even participated in the search efforts after she disappeared. Detectives were struck by how genuinely distressed he seemed during questioning. Scott also shared a series of text messages that Giselle had sent him over time. Many of them were filled with anger, directed at Michelle. One message read, "I hope you find what you're looking for in someone as disgusting as her." Another, "ICCUSED Michelle of destroying their relationship." Some messages even contained threats. Scott also revealed that Giselle had once undergone psychiatric evaluation and had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and severe depression. Their relationship had been unstable for years. Eventually, Scott was granted full custody of their daughter. Shortly afterward, a restraining order was issued against Giselle, preventing her from coming near Scott or his family. That restraining order was issued just 3 days before Michelle disappeared. As investigators dug deeper, the evidence began to build. Surveillance footage showed Giselle using a stolen ID badge at the nursing school only 1 day before Michelle vanished. Disguised in a lab coat, she entered restricted areas and examined class schedules. She now knew exactly where Michelle would be and when she would leave. Cell phone records later showed both women's phones in the same area around the time Michelle disappeared. Security footage also captured Giselle entering an Apple store the following day and asking employees to unlock an iPhone. After leaving the store, she was seen using the phone to send messages to Michelle's friends. Investigators now believed she had been impersonating Michelle. Eventually, police gathered enough evidence. Giselle Esteban, 27 years old, was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Blood matching Michelle's DNA was discovered on a pair of shoes at Giselle's apartment. Giselle's hair was also found inside Michelle's vehicle, and her DNA appeared on the steering wheel. Still, Michelle herself had not been found. Her family continued searching desperately, hoping for answers. Then, months later, the worst possible news arrived. On September 17th, Michelle Lee's remains were discovered in a shallow grave in a remote area roughly 12 miles from Giselle's home. The remains had decomposed so badly that the coroner could not determine the exact cause of death. Despite that, investigators were confident about what had happened. In September 2012, Giselle Esteban stood trial. During the trial, she admitted to killing Michelle but claimed it was not planned. Her defense argued that the act had been an emotional outburst rather than premeditated murder. Prosecutors strongly disagreed. They presented evidence showing months of jealousy, planning, and preparation. The jury ultimately agreed with the prosecution. Giselle Esteban was found guilty of first-degree murder. Throughout the trial, she showed little emotion. When the verdict was read, she remained completely expressionless. The judge later described the evidence as some of the most disturbing he had seen in his entire career. Giselle Esteban was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. One family lost a daughter, sister, and friend. Another family was left dealing with the consequences of a senseless crime. During the sentencing hearing, Michelle's brother Michael spoke about her dream of becoming a nurse like their mother. Overcome with emotion, he broke down as he described the life she never had the chance to live. Michelle Lee's dreams ended in a hospital parking garage, a tragedy fueled by jealousy and false assumptions. Today, Michelle's family continues to honor her memory by raising awareness for missing persons and supporting other families searching for loved ones. And in their hearts, they hold on to one comforting thought, that somewhere beyond this world, Michelle has finally been reunited with her mother.